Altra in the minds of runners is primarily a company producing trail shoes, and if they make something for the road, it's usually shoes with zero drop, ultra wide uppers and not much cushioning. However, for some time now, Altra has been flirting with road running and trying to appeal to a more mainstream consumer. That's how the Experience series came to life, featuring non-zero drop and a bit more foam. Now it's time for the next step, max cushioned shoes. And I wouldn't be myself if I didn't test this novelty. Let me introduce you to Altra FWD VIA. Hi, I'm Michał, an amateur runner really into running shoes. On this channel I review gear, shoes and cover various running related topics, so if that's something that interests you, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment. It really helps me reach new people. Thanks! Before I move on to my impressions of running in the Altra FWD VIA, I must note that I bought these shoes myself. No one influenced the opinions I'll present here and no one saw this video before you. I'm not affiliated with any shop or brand producing running shoes. Let's start with the technical details, and as always we'll begin at the top. The upper is made of fabric, relatively thick throughout the length of the shoe, just right for winter running, but I'd be concerned about its breathability on warmer days. The heel area is additionally lined with soft material, but not excessively, about average thickness. The heel counter is reinforced, holding the heel securely in place with a flexible element at the back to make putting on the shoe easier. The tongue is quite thick along its entire length and gusseted, which prevents the foot from shifting inside the shoe. Even though true to Altra's style, there's plenty of room. In fact, plenty is an understatement. These shoes have an enormous amount of space for the foot, so people with wide feet have nothing to worry about, while those having narrower feet shouldn't complain either. The foot doesn't slide sideways in these shoes, it stays securely in place, yet there's enough room to naturally spread your toes while running. The insole also is worth mentioning. It's quite thick and partially mitigates the hard feeling of the midsole foam, which I'll talk about shortly. I purchased size 45 EU or US 11, which is my standard shoe size, the same I choose in most running shoe brands. The midsole is entirely made of new Ego Flow foam. Altra boasts that this is their softest offering and maximum comfort, and to be honest, if this is their softest foam, I'm afraid to imagine what the others are like, because to be honest, these are probably the hardest shoes I've ever tested in recent years. There's a lot of foam which improves the situation on longer runs, but they still feel like shoes for someone who prefers hard footwear. I'm not one of those people, although I'll tell you about some positives associated with this midsole later in the video. These shoes are designed for easy runs and long, steady workouts, and to make foot rolling a bit easier, there's a slight rocker, especially in the forefoot area. There's 37mm of foam under the heel and 33mm under the midfoot, forefoot, giving us a huge, for Altra, 4mm drop. The outsole is generously covered with rubber, arranged in the typical 5-toe Altra pattern. The rubber layer is about 1.5mm thick, and the rubber itself feels quite hard and durable. After about 100 kilometers, there are hardly any signs of wear, and I've run in very diverse terrain for shoes of this type. And the weight, men's reference size weighs 269 grams, women's 235 grams. For shoes in the highly cushioned daily trainer category, this is a really good result. My shoes in size 45 EU or 11 US weigh 283 grams or 10 ounces for the left shoe, and 287 grams and 10.1 ounces for the right shoe, a perfectly acceptable difference, and the weight is absolutely fine. Alright, time for my running impressions. As usual, let's start with the positives. The biggest positive by far is comfort. I mentioned earlier that the foam is a bit too hard for me and too stiff for me, and I still stand by that, but when it comes to how the foot sits in the shoe, how much space there is and how the foot behaves even during longer runs, it's really excellent. Altra often uses this as their selling point. Lots of rooms in the shoe allows the foot to land more naturally, and here I have to agree with them. I mainly used these shoes for easy long runs, except for one exception where I did strides, but it quickly became clear that it wasn't a good idea. They're not made for that. And every time my feet felt really free. Nothing grabbed, my toes weren't cramped, and yet the foot stayed securely in place. When I put on other shoes from my rotation for faster runs, I immediately noticed how much less room they offered. Another advantage is the versatile outsole. Even though the FWD VIA is primarily a road shoe, the tread and outsole texture make it possible to run in parks or forests without risking slips or unstable footing. I tested these shoes on various surfaces and they performed decently on all of them. The hard outsole also provides limited ground feel, which in my opinion is an advantage. I also have to praise the overall stability of the Altra FWD VIA. They are not stability shoes, yet with my pronating feet I felt surprisingly secure. I think it's partly due to the amount of room in the shoe, allowing the foot's arch to naturally align. This is also supported by the slightly higher midsole profile on the shoe's inner side. Even on uneven surfaces or during sharp turns, they performed well. And the last positive is durability, though I must note that this assessment is somewhat premature. I've done about 100 kilometers in these shoes and neither the tread nor the exposed foam on the midsole shows much wear. I suspect they will easily handle several hundred more kilometers. And now, what didn't I like? No one will be surprised when I say the foam's hardness. Despite the ample amount of it, these are probably some of the hardest shoes I've run in. At the same time, the foam isn't particularly responsive, so it's mainly suited for easy mileage. For me, this is a huge downside, but I also have to point out that if you prefer harder shoes, this could be the opposite. It could be a significant advantage. It all comes down to personal preference here. During easy runs, it felt very tough at first, but with each subsequent run, I got a bit more used to the hardness and even started to derive some enjoyment from the easy runs. However, it wasn't enough enjoyment to make me excited to lace up this model for my next run. I can't deny though that as shoes for easy runs, they are quite decent. They're just not my style. And speaking of style, these are not the prettiest shoes. When I took them out of the box, I thought to myself, Ferrari from the side, but Multipla from above. As long as you look at these shoes from the side, they are okay. The design has some charm, but we mostly look at the shoes from above, and here, due to their width, they look like clogs. On a few runs with friends, I even got asked if I was wearing running Crocs, but here you have to consider what's more important to you, room for comfortable foot placement or how you look in these shoes. I like wearing stylish things, but in this case, the freedom for my feet was so compelling that I overlooked the aesthetics. Before I wrap up, let's take a look at how the FWD VIA fits into Altra's rotation. It's not straightforward, as Altra has only recently started experimenting with shoes featuring more than zero drop, so you will find a mix of both approaches here. Let's start with today's reviewed model, the Altra FWD VIA. These shoes tick the box for long, easy runs and recovery jogs. They are the most cushioned shoes in the lineup, with foam that isn't dynamic, making them perfect for easy mileage. In the daily trainers category, I'd choose the Altra Experience Flow. These are Altra's most normal shoes with broad everyday use. Alternatively, if you're looking for extra stability, you might consider the Experience Form version. And now we move into the zero drop territory, as Altra only offers zero drop models for race day and faster training shoes. For tempo runs, the first choice would be the Altra Vanish Tempo. And for races, the Altra Vanish Carbon. These are race shoes with a carbon plate and zero drop, but also plenty of foam. An interesting proposition, but definitely for someone who has already run a bit in zero drop shoes. The price for Altra FWD VIA is €170 or $160, depending on the source. I bought them directly from the Altra's website. The delivery came fairly quickly from Italy to Poland, and there were no shipping fees. Is that a good price? Compared to direct competitors, it's not the worst, but in my opinion, it's definitely too steep. And what alternatives do I see? This isn't easy either, as I need to find something with a similarly firm midsole. So the first suggestion, Topo Athletic Atmos. 1 mm higher drop and just 1 mm more foam under the heel, and the foam in Topo shoes isn't among the softest either. This is definitely the closest competitor, also in terms of price, as the official price is about $160 and €170, though you can easily find them a bit cheaper. The second alternative, slightly less fitting, is the Adidas Adistar 3. 40 mm of repetitor foam, 5 mm drop. It's not a dynamism monster, and the foam isn't exceptionally soft either. The price, however, is much lower, $130 or 140 euros. You can save a bit of money, but it doesn't offer the same experience as the Altras. Quick summary, the Altra FWD VIA is a decent shoe for easy runs, but a lot depends on your preferences. If you like firmer shoes and miss the old days when running shoes weren't increasingly softer as they are now, you'll feel at home here. I really like soft shoes, so the FWD VIA is definitely not for me, but I still see its advantages such as foot comfort and stability. However, I think that for the full price of 170 euros, one can and should expect more. They are just okay shoes, there's nothing spectacular here. Solid, but unfortunately at a relatively high price. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I encourage you to subscribe, like and comment on this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these shoes. Also check out my Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you in the next video.